Hey folks, we are here at ng-conf, and I am talking to Mike Giambalvo. Mike, do you want to say hi?
Hi. Hello.
Now, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll talk a little bit about your talk and what you do with Angular.
Okay. So I work at Google. I was on the Protractor team a couple years ago, and we sort of got moved to the Google Cloud Platform team.
Okay.
So now I'm there, and I work on testing for the GCP UI.
Ah, gotcha. That sounds fun. And so do you use Protractor to do that, or is it something else?
Yeah. So the story behind that is, so my talk is with Craig Nishina.
Uh-huh.
So Craig and I both joined the Protractor team at about the same time. We worked on it for a year, and basically the part of Google's hierarchy that we were under decided it didn't want to support Protractor anymore. So that kind of got moved to the Angular team down in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
We both live up in Seattle. We love it there. We don't want to move. So what happened was Julie and I went to Cloud Platform, which is the largest Angular 2 app within Google,
Mm-hmm.
and also the biggest user of Protractor within Google.
Okay.
So when we went from the position of being the people maintaining Protractor
Mm-hmm.
and complaining to the GCP people about, hey, your tests keep making it hard for us to maintain Protractor and bring it in,
Right.
to being the people maintaining those tests and being the people using Protractor as customers
Mm-hmm.
instead.
That makes sense. Somebody that I've known for a long time in the Ruby community that works on Google Cloud Platform is Asia Hammerly. She lives up near Seattle. So
Yeah, I'm not familiar with her, but Cloud Platform is really big in Seattle.
nice. So Cloud Platform and Amazon AWS.
Yeah,
up in Seattle.
it's not really a coincidence, right? That that GCP is very strong in Seattle, partially because of AWS, partially because of Microsoft.
Right.
There's a lot of cross recruitment.
That makes sense. So what's the focus of your talk then?
So the focus of our talk is Protractor. We're calling it Protractor A New Hope. So because basically what happened was, we worked on Protractor for a year,
Right.
and then it got destaffed and kind of moved around, and no one's been supporting it at the level that it was before since then. It's sort of like on part-time support from the Angular team. And there was stuff that we were working on right before we left the project, and stuff that we've kind of worked on since then, both in my work on GCP,
Right.
working with Julie Ralph, and then also stuff Craig has been doing. We were contributing to a book that's coming out soon, Testing Angular Applications.
Mm-hmm.
And for that book, we came up with some new ideas around screenshot testing and other kinds of things. So we're going to take all of that and shove it into a 20-minute, unusually Star Wars themed talk, like excessively Star Wars themed.
Can you cover that in 20 minutes?
Yeah, we do. We're coming in right at 20 minutes. So
Very cool. I'm curious. I love both getting to know the speakers and getting to know a little bit more about the topic. So let's talk about you for a minute. So you live in Seattle.
Mhm.
Are you married? Do you have kids? What's your life look like that way? Just personally.
yeah, I'm married. I actually, so my wife. So I'm from Texas. I'm from Dallas. My wife is from San Antonio,
Okay.
and one of her best friends in high school was my friend in college.
Okay.
So I moved up to Seattle 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
She decided to leave San Antonio and flee to Seattle.
Right.
And so when she talked to him about this, he recommended me, and he introduced us, and it was kind of his secret hope that we would get married. And
Hey,
we did.
that worked out.
Yeah, it worked out really well.
Nice.
Yeah. So we got married this past September.
Oh, congratulations.
It was like a summer camp theme wedding. It was great. We had the thing that I'm most proud of is that for the wedding, we had a 3D scanning booth. So we would use photogrammetry to take people's
Right.
scans, and then they could order themselves on Shapeways.
Oh,
So we
wow.
have our liquor cabinet has all of our wedding guests on the
Oh,
shelf.
that's cool.
And then the morning after the wedding, we held a raffle that everyone wins. So it was a legit raffle. Everyone took a raffle ticket. They put it in a hat, but we had prizes for everyone. So
Right.
we just called out their names one at a time. And it's probably what I'm most proud of.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So, so is most of your work time these days outside of work then just hanging with your wife, or do you have other hobbies that you do?
Yeah. So Craig and I were contributing to this book, so that took up a lot of my time.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
We both help organize the Angular Seattle meetup, along with our regular team of organizers. So that takes up time.
You mentioned that that's going to be during Microsoft Build, which is the 7th through the 9th of May, right?
Yeah, we do a monthly meetup, and I think our next one is around that time, the same time as Build. Yeah.
Cool. Well, if I'm there, I'll try and crash it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Because Microsoft's bringing me up to interview their folks for Build, and then, this video will be up before then too. So if you will be in the Seattle area, double check, make sure that you know when it is so you can come out.
And we do Angular Seattle meetups monthly. So if you're ever in the area any other time and want to drop by, just give us a line.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an uncle that lives up there too. He lives 45 minutes to an hour north of Seattle.
Okay.
So yeah.
So like Everett or Shorewood or.
Yeah, I think it's Lake Stevens or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah. Cool. Well, let's veer back over to Protractor, and really quickly, I know a little bit about Protractor. I've kind of played with it for episodes on our podcast. I think we had Julie Ralph on like once or twice to talk about it. So it's kind of a nice wrapper over the top of Selenium WebDriver, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And what's kind of the intended use case for it? Is it just end-to-end testing, or?
It is just end-to-end testing. And there's so something that comes up in our talk is historically like 5 years ago, asynchronous programming in JavaScript was very different than it is now. Promises weren't standard. You would have like callback hell, right?
Yep. And now we're into observables and things like
that.
Right,
exactly. So about that time, so every command in your test that you send to the browser is an async call.
Right.
Under the hood, it's an HTTP request.
Right.
So 5 years ago, if you're writing a Selenium test, it would be like, do this and then call back and then do this and then, or you'd use a promise library.
Right.
But promises weren't standard yet. And then they had this clever, so what the Selenium maintainers did was they had this clever trick of, we'll make a synchronous API, but everything that you do just queues up an async call later.
Right.
It was like their managed promises control flow thing. And then Protractor would patch Jasmine for you so that at the end of your it block, it would run all of this async call in one flow.
Okay.
And so this was like difficult to work with. And so the idea behind Protractor was to make that a lot easier for people. Right. You just write your test as if it's synchronous. And they sort of take care of the magic under the hood for you.
Okay.
That mechanism, the control flow, is going away this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because because it has problems. It makes your tests harder to debug.
Right.
It makes it harder to reason about what's going on. It introduces all kinds of problems for us.
It's essentially standing in and doing something that is different from what you wrote.
And it's tricking you into taking something that is inherently async,
right,
and making it appear as if it's synchronous,
right,
which works for simple cases, but then kind of falls apart as you do more complex stuff.
Yep.
But now that async await is standard and is in Node 8, the Selenium WebDriver JS team has decided to drop the control flow and manage promises,
right, and
say just use async await everywhere. It's fine. And so because of that, it means you can now debug Protractor tests using standard tools.
Right.
So you can use Chrome DevTools to debug your Protractor tests. It means things are just a lot simpler and easier to work with. It also means Protractor is doing less magic for you under the hood, but Protractor continues to sort of encapsulate a lot of other useful features, basically. Right. Like element finders or just wrangling like downloading WebDriver and setting it up.
Wrangling WebDriver and setting that up. I've done that before, folks. It sucks.
Yeah. It's gotten better, right? So
yeah, well, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's been a few years, but yeah, I hope so at this point.
So another big thing that's changed in the past few years is, Selenium was very ad hoc, right? Like if you went to test on Safari, you would get a special extension for Safari.
Right.
Right. That's no longer the case. The mechanism to control browsers is a W3C standard. So the people making the browser are also writing the automation tooling for it. And that wasn't the case before. So it means that this stuff works much better than it did before. Right. So in new versions of macOS, for example, you get a Safari driver built in. Right. And it's just there.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah, there's still some growing pains and some rough patches, but it's a lot easier than it used to be, and it's continuing to get easier.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what did you have to cut out of your talk? I mean, 20 minutes, I'm sure you had all these ideas, and it was like, yeah, we can't get that in.
We wanted to do a Star Wars themed talk.
Right.
And I had this idea of sort of a dark side, light side metaphor, and the light side would be unit testing.
Right.
Because it's like disciplined and elegant. And the dark side would be WebDriver testing.
Oh, right.
Because it's like powerful and seductive. So we made this app, and we had all these examples around unit testing as well. And that's all gone. It's only WebDriver testing, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So do you folks on the Protractor team do a lot of unit testing as well then, or is it?
Oh, well, so I'm not on the Protractor team. I'm on Google Cloud Platform.
Oh, right.
And we do extensive unit testing.
Okay.
We are in the process of migrating GCP's UI to Angular 5, 6, the latest Angular.
Right.
There's still a large component portion of it on AngularJS that we're trying to get off of. And one of our selling points for that migration is unit testing. So we've also developed an extensive unit testing system that hopefully we're like going to be open sourcing more and more. Because one of the things that happened in GCP is it was very easy to write end-to-end tests, partially because of Protractor, partially because of Google's framework. So they have a lot of end-to-end tests, way too many. And we're trying to cut that down in the future by focusing more on unit testing. You still need some end-to-end tests, but not as many as, you have to cover your entire application with them.
I don't think I've ever seen an app with too many tests. What does that feel like?
Well, it's a problem when the tests become difficult to maintain or when they don't give you useful feedback.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of the problem is Google makes our CI system is very easy to use and it scales well. Right. But it scales so well that you can end up with thousands of tests that you may not even care about anymore. Like they may not.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'll buy that.
Yeah. And the problem is specifically if having, it's not so much having too many tests, it's having too many end-to-end tests versus unit tests. Right. Because our end-to-end tests take a lot longer to run. They have to spin up a fake server. Right. They have to get a machine with a browser. We have flakiness issues because it's more expensive to run like a browser that's interacting with a page and doing stuff versus a browser that's just running unit tests. Right. So. Yep. Yeah.
So how much time do you spend working on Google Cloud Platform stuff, and how much do you time? I cannot talk. So how much time do you spend working on Google Cloud Platform features that people are going to use as part of the platform, and how much time do you spend writing tests in Protractor or Jasmine or whatever?
So specifically, the Google Cloud Platform UI has, I don't remember the exact numbers, but over 1,000 developers on it. Okay. And the model is that there are feature teams, like the team making the UI for storage. Okay. Or for compute or for genomics. And those are all over the world. The compute team is in Warsaw. The storage team is in New York.
Oh, wow.
The team in Seattle is sort of a core infrastructure team. Okay. So we specifically focus on making sure the tests run and that Selenium is updated, that we're handling incoming migrations that we need to worry about, and that we're improving the system overall by adding features like screenshot and performance testing. So I've been focused on the past year on adding performance testing for our web tests. So we have a benchmarking system where you can take your component and instantiate an app and then run it with bench press and like get the results and see how it changes over time.
That makes sense. I think one other thing that I keep hearing about on the end-to-end testing side of things is Cypress.
Yes.
So what are the trade-offs between the two?
So I'm not terribly familiar with Cypress, although I do hear about it. I first saw Cypress back when I was on the Protractor team, so like a couple of years ago now. And it struck me that they were solving the same problem that the control flow tried to solve, that tests are very asynchronous in a different way. Right. It seems easy to use. It seems like if you're a team, if you're a single developer or you don't have a lot of resources, it might be a good fit for you. Right. But the usability of story of WebDriver testing has gotten so much better in the past year that I don't think there's too much of a difference.
That makes sense.
And and there's a bit of a problem. The other advantage of Cypress is your tests are in the browser, right? Whereas with WebDriver or Protractor, they're a node application. Right. And that used to be a big benefit. I don't think it's as much of a benefit these days because your Node application has async await. It
Right.
has VS, it has debugging. It has all these other features too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd be interested if anyone has used both or has switched from one to the other recently, because these things are constantly in flux.
I would be interested by that too. And at the hackathon Wednesday, Alex Eagle will be writing the Bazel build rule for Cypress tests.
Ooh,
So if you're interested in Cypress testing and making it easier to set up, and you want to use Bazel or Basil, I don't know how it's pronounced, check that out. So
Very cool. One last question: if people want to, well, if they want to watch your talk, because there aren't any talks today, so your talk is what?
it's Thursday at 5 p.m.
Thursday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time.
Yes, Mountain Time and Grand Ballroom C.
All right. So if you're out there and you're on your way here and you see these videos come up, then come and watch it. I know they're also streaming the videos, so go to like everytimezone.com or something and figure out when it is in your time, and then definitely check it out. I think testing is one of those things, at least in my opinion, testing and test automation is one of those easy wins that gets you a lot of predictability and stability in your code without days and days and days and days of effort.
Yeah.
You can start plugging it in on the stuff you're working on now and easily grow it into the areas that you wind up adding later.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So definitely check it out. Check out Cypress too. I mean, Protractor was reasonably easy to use before, and it sounds like it's gotten better. Cypress is pretty easy to use. So yeah, folks, there's no reason not to at this point. You set it up, you spend an hour maybe figuring out exactly how you want to use it and setting it up, and then you get the big payoff.
I would caution that, this stuff evolves very quickly, and there's a lot of old information out there.
That's
so
fair.
just as you're setting stuff up, especially browser automation has changed so much in the past 2 years specifically. Like, make sure the thing you're looking at is like 2016 or more recent, at least.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with a lot of these systems. I mean, even Angular, for example.
Yeah.
You do a search for Angular. How do I blah, blah, blah in Angular?
Right.
And a lot of times there was not the clarity that we have now between Angular and AngularJS. And so you'll find examples for AngularJS. And if you're not paying attention, you wind up with something that won't work with Angular.
Right.
So
just check the date. Like, beware of the context. You might have to like dig a little bit deeper, but beware of that.
yeah, that's super good advice. If people want to follow you on Twitter or GitHub, or maybe you have a blog somewhere.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter at Heathkit, Heathkit. Heathkit is the first computer I used was a Heathkit that my dad built.
Oh, cool.
It was a computer kit company back in the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
You fit right in here.
I know,
at
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Heathkit is a very 80s name, actually. I'm Heathkit on Twitter and on GitHub.
Very cool. And then do you blog or anything else anywhere?
I don't. No.
Okay.
No. But I also help run the Angular Seattle meetup. So meetup.com/Angular Seattle. And if you're in the Seattle area, come on by anytime. So
Yeah, that's always fun. I found when I'm out traveling, just
Yeah.
stop in a meetup.
absolutely, yeah.
It's also, since I'm self-employed, a good way to write off a trip. If we're being
Exactly.
honest.
Yeah. No, totally.
But yeah, and the other thing is if you're doing something interesting, a lot of times they have the same people show up every time, and so you bring some insight that they may not see anywhere else. So
Yeah.
that's really a
Yeah, we
positive
love
thing.
to have out of town and new people. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to your talk on Thursday. So, folks, 5 p.m. Thursday, check it out.
Yep.
And if not, then find it on YouTube after the conference.
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
All right.
thanks, Mike.
Thanks.